afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the January meeting of Raleigh's Stormwater Management Advisory Commission. I'll call this meeting to order. We don't have any requests for excused absences at this point. We do have a quorum of members present, and with that, I think we can get underway. First item of business here, introductions. We have a new commission member just appointed 2 days ago, I hear, Mr. Graham Smith. If you want to take a moment and introduce yourself, Mr. Smith.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And definitely appreciate the opportunity to serve with you guys and learn more about what SMAC does. I am a local landscape architect. I run a small company called Site Collaborative here in Raleigh. And I've been a landscape architect for 26 years, but I've run this firm for 5 years and been practicing in the Raleigh area for 16 or 17 years. I've been fortunate enough to work on several R3 projects for private owners, Longleaf Hotel, Gateway Plaza, and some other smaller things. So I've had the good fortune of working with the city on that. I've also had the good fortune of working with the city on projects where they provided financial assistance to public parks where we are working. Our client is the city. And so Wooten Meadow Park is a project where we're the prime consultant on. And then Bailiwick Park, where we're a sub-consultant, and some other projects. And recently served on the Environmental Advisory Board, but wanted to get over to SMAC as this more closely aligns with my day-to-day work. So.
Great, thanks. Sounds like you are coming at this with a fair amount of background on the programs and the technical aspects of it. But I'll encourage you to ask questions where you feel there are gaps in your knowledge. I think there are no stupid questions here, and there's quite a bit of I guess a lot of us here have a fair amount of experience and understand the lingo and might speak in lingo. Feel free to speak up and ask for things to be decoded. Great. So we have in the agenda, we have the minutes from the December meeting. And if everybody's had a chance to review those, have any needs for corrections, comments, etc., please say so now. Okay. With that, if nobody has any comments or corrections, we'll entertain an order, a motion to adopt the minutes. Okay. Katie, I saw your hand up first, and David, I'll take yours as a second. All in favor? And we just raise our hands to indicate that helps. So that's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have a section here for public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak to the Stormwater Management Advisory Commission at this time, you can do so using the chat function. Wayne, do we have anybody that has already indicated an interest in addressing the commission?
I do not see any requests to address the commission in the chat, nor have I received any emails requesting to speak at this time, sir, but I'll keep an eye out.
Thank you. I do want to encourage any members of the public listening in to feel free to engage with the commission especially on the topics that we have on the agenda. And if there's something that you want to address with us that's not on the agenda, I'm sure we can find a way to engage you with that question or concern. Okay, so as per usual, we'll move ahead of schedule to our commission and staff updates. And first on there is just one of our monthly commissioner introductions and comments from Mr. Stansel.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say I have enjoyed serving with you all for the past year on this committee. Learned a lot, and coming at this thing from the private sector, it's been nice to learn a little bit about how things work on this side. I have to say that what I've enjoyed the most probably is participating in the litter pickup days at various Raleigh parks. And I would encourage any members of the public who want to be active in improving the water quality to consider signing up for one of those days. I don't have the background, the engineering background, I guess, that most of you all have. But I am a passionate advocate for improving our water quality, and I hope that I can be of service and continue to serve in this role.
Thank you. And if you want to continue with the floor, next up is any Planning Commission and SMAC liaison concerns that you need to bring to us.
Don't have anything.
Nothing today.
Mr. Chair, just one item of information. I think I'd mentioned a proposed rezoning for the Falls Lake Watershed area at the intersection of Six Forks Road and Strickland Road. At the council meeting this past Tuesday, that rezoning case was scheduled for a public hearing to be held on February 1st. It'll be an evening meeting on February 1st. So just one that we're keeping an eye on because of the special water supply watershed designation of that property.
Okay. And do you have the zoning case number there in front of you?
I do not have it. Oh, I do know it. I remember it. Z2121 is the zoning case number.
And that was Strickland and Six Forks.
Correct. And for those commissioners who are new or maybe not aware, there is a rezoning portal if you go to the city's website, and anyone else listening for that matter. If you go to the city's website and do a search on rezoning, there's a rezoning portal that is actually very helpful to find a lot of important information about proposed rezoning cases and the status of those cases. And there's an opportunity for citizen comment on individual rezoning cases through that portal as well.
And just to recap, SMAC does not have an official role in the rezoning process, but this is a matter of interest simply because of the special watershed situation.
Correct. Yes, sir. Good clarification.
Thank you. Well, Wayne, I'm sure you have a few team updates to give us, so I'll let you take it away from here.
Thank you very much. I do have one announcement. I'll make it briefly. We have a new stormwater administrator over the infrastructure group who is joining us Monday. His name is Mani Kumar. He's coming to us from the city of Austin, Texas, but I'll reserve a full introduction until next month when he's actually on board and able to attend the meetings. But we're excited to have that key position filled. And the only other staff update at this time is wanted to mention that Mr. Carper, Ken, is today would be his last meeting officially on the commission, and his 6 years of term is up. So after this meeting, we'll have a vacancy, and the city council meeting on January 18th has the nomination process will begin to fill Mr. Carper's vacancy. And we very much appreciate Mr. Carper's long service on the commission. 6 years is quite a long period of time, and when we appreciate all the good input and valuable insights he's shared over that period of time.
Thanks. At our last meeting, I made sure to thank him for his service and his insights and everything that I had learned from him. And maybe all that was a little premature, and he felt that it was time for him to exit already. But I'll reiterate my thanks to Ken for his service.
Mr. Chair, I've been reminded by the chat. Thank you, Suzette. It is worth noting Kevin Boyer has officially retired from the city as of the end of December. I know many or not most of you have worked with Kevin in one some capacity or another as our water quality supervisor and our green stormwater infrastructure champion. Thankfully, Kevin is only officially retiring for a month, which is required to kick in his official city retirement. Then he will be rejoining us part-time in February to focus primarily on green stormwater infrastructure issues. So we're glad Kevin's coming back to help out for as long as he's willing and able. He's been a great advocate for our green stormwater infrastructure program.
That's good to hear. Okay.
And moving on then, I guess I'll turn it next over to Ben Brown. Ben's going to give a brief update on where the design manual stands and next steps.
Yep, thanks, Wayne. This will be brief because there's been some a work stoppage as far as that goes. We have had a few vacancies that we've been working to fill, and actually one of the updates that I should have sent Wayne this week before the SMAC meeting is we did have a promotion. Sally Hoyt, who was one of our senior plan reviewers, is now the plan review supervisor. So we're very excited to have Sally on board, and you all have probably seen some of her work with the GSI stuff, and she was acting as our GSI advocate in her previous job, which will still be her, like one of her passions, but it won't be her official job. But she will be very key in helping out with the stormwater design manual. And now with that position filled, we hope to kind of get those second draft comments addressed and publicized so we can get the version to you all for you all's just review and any more comments before we go to council to officially adopt the stormwater design manual. So we've still got a fair amount to go, but we're in a good spot now with some good help on board to kind of help us get across that finish line. Any questions?
Any commission members with questions about the design manual?
All right.
And Mr. Chair,
Thank
we
you,
have
Ben.
no notices prior to construction, so that completes the staff update.
Okay. So we can move on ahead to next up is our update on the development of the stream stabilization program.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Just want to wish you all a happy new year. You see the drainage assistance program screen up. But before we get to drainage assistance, I just wanted to provide an update to the commission on stream stabilization. We are working with Raleigh Water to try and identify some sites that we can partner on. Sites where there's erosion exposing a sewer pipe. We visited several sites last month with Raleigh Water, and we're also working with the Stormwater Asset Management Program to identify sites in the Harris Neck Basin, particularly with Raleigh Water as it relates to sewer. So we plan to have some projects identified and presented to you in the next coming months. So I'll welcome any questions on that before we get to the drainage systems projects.
Other commissioners with questions about those initiatives?
This is Mark. I don't have any questions, but I do want to let you know that I am online. I'm in my car. Unfortunately, I had a car die, so I couldn't get home.
Thanks, Mark. Those projects with the sewer pipe exposed, what led to the discovery of those issues? Was it from resident complaints or routine inspections of infrastructure?
Yeah, good question. It was we looked at the sites where we've had stream stabilization issues regarding our drainage systems model, drainage systems complaints. And then we partnered with Raleigh Water to see if there were sewers in the area. And then we'll continue that same process with asset management to try and identify some more sites.
Okay. So in essence, it begins with a resident complaint, and then I guess the coordination and analysis is important to recognizing where those complaints might be more than affecting one property or a handful of properties, but actually getting into community infrastructure.
Yes, sir. And that's part of why we're using the Harrisonite Basin study as well. So it's not just complaint driven.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could add, Mr. Chair, too, that as Chad said, that's another benefit of the partnership with Raleigh Water is they do more annual assessments of their sewer infrastructure. So they're out there in the field already anyway and can help us identify potential stream stabilization issues while they're out there. They have a much larger staffing level than we do. So there's a lot of benefits from the partnership with them, I think, on both sides, both the infrastructure, sewer infrastructure protection, as well as to our programs that, as Chaz mentioned.
That's great. Well, I don't think we have. Do we have any other comments, questions on that before you get started? Other commissioners?
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, we have 3 projects today. We'll look at the pending projects, the project's location map, then the project request, and then the funding overview. And then welcome any questions, and I'll stop after each project if you have questions, or actually feel free at any point in time to ask me a question. Excuse me. So this is the pending projects list that you can see here. The 3 that we've got today are Birchwood, Hollycrest, Ashland, and Brookside Drive. So these are the locations of the 3 projects. We have Birchwood, Hollycrest, Ashland, and then Brookside Drive stream stabilization. So the first one is 3813 Birchwood and 3816 Hollycrest. There's significant flooding, which we'll see in the next slide. The flooding is at 3813 Birchwood and 3816 Hollycrest. It's coming up from Durley Road and these upstream properties, and it's coming down the slope. You'll see on some of the next photos that there's a significant slope there, and it's hitting these houses that I've mentioned so far. A lot of it is concentrated right about this point. There was a recent development here in about 2018. They did put in a detention system, and it's coming out here. And so what we'd like to do is install a pipe running along this orange line and down to an existing system. It would be 18-inch RCP, roughly 280 feet. There's going to be a lot of challenges, as I'm sure you could imagine, with keeping access open. You can see that people's driveways of people who aren't being affected, we're going to have to maintain access for them. You'll see in some of these pictures going forward that it's really, really narrow. So this is the flooding. This is looking up towards Durley. This picture on the right here is looking down towards Timberhurst. This is on Birchwood. You can just see the extent of the flooding that's going on and these slopes. Excuse me. And you can see the narrowness too. This is obviously the edge of one house and the edge of another house. So it's very, very narrow in that area. And we did take that into the cost. I'm sure if you saw in your packets, the project was, as I recall, $380,000. So we've taken into account the difficulties of constructing this project. And then this is looking up from Timberhurst. You can see that, this line would run down here on this left side of the road. And these properties who haven't had structural flooding would be impacted by the construction of that line, and then the narrowness of installing the pipe. So I would welcome any questions on Birchwood and Hollycrest.
Commission members have questions? I have one. You mentioned development behind this property from 2018.
Yes.
And a basin that was installed there. Is that basin functioning, as designed, or recognizing that drainage is a collective problem, and there may not be one specific property to point to in these situations, but just because you mentioned that, I'm curious about its potential relevance here.
Yes, I did confirm that it is inspected routinely. It was sized actually for the 100-year storm because the structural flooding was documented prior to the basin going in. So it is sized for the 100-year.
Okay. And
but a lot of it is coming from Durley, I Road. That's where a lot of the flooding is coming from. But I just wanted to point out that upstream development with the detention basin, because that's where some of the concentrated flow does come from.
Okay.
And so, Chaz, just to clarify, this structural flooding had been documented prior to that development, and per our Unified Development Ordinance, where there is downstream structural flooding already identified before development goes in, they are required to control up to the 100-year storm as an additional prevention measure. That's correct, right, Chaz? In this situation?
The UDO 9.2.2.E.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments on the Birchwood and is it best for you if we handle these all at once, or should we give our formal motions on the individual projects?
I mean, we can take a motion right now. I do have the cost for at the end, breaking it down, but the cost for this would be $380,000 is what we're anticipating. And a lot of that is the design, or not the design, the construction constraints, given the proximity of the houses to one another, and then maintaining access for those houses.
Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion in favor of or against approval of the drainage assistance recommendations for 3813 Birchwood and 3816 Hollycrest?
Mark Sr. moves for approval.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second? See a second from Katie. Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Any discussion? Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Looks like that is unanimous as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 2809 Ashland Street, we have a yard and driveway flooding and some erosion occurring at 2809 Ashland. We would repair some of the erosion at 2809 Ashland, but what we're planning on doing is redirect a lot of the flow down the right of way. And the main reason for that is this property owner and this property owner right here do not wish to comply, and the issues are going on this property right here. So we believe that if we can redirect a lot of the flow and fix some of the erosion, you're not gonna see as much, or it's probably gonna eliminate a lot of the driveway flooding and solve some of the erosion issues. So we would run a 15-inch pipe down the right of way, and it'd be about 120 linear feet. And the drainage area to this pipe is roughly 12 acres, and so we'll see some of the pictures on the next slide. Here you can see this is 2809, and you can see some of the driveway flooding that's occurring, as well as some of the erosion that's occurring. I would welcome any questions about 2807, 2809 Ashland.
I know in this situation, well, we have this was first reported or placed on the drainage assistance list in 2017, I think. Do we have any sense for how far back these drainage problems have been observed?
Well, we routinely go out every year. We try to get to these projects every year. So as I recall, these were from 2020, these pictures.
Right. But I mean, prior to 2017,
am I aware of?
Yeah, I guess that's the first documentation we have, is that complaint.
Yes.
Okay. I'll also note here that upstream of this site, there were, I think, 3 houses built on top of the Blue Line stream within the early 2000s. And as I understand it, that required a variance from the state noose buffer rules. But the state did grant that variance. I used to live actually at the corner of Ashland and Wayland there, and then subsequently just downstream of this property, and recall when those houses were built on what had been open stream and now is culverted, I believe, through that property. So, and I don't have rainy day pictures of this stream from before those houses were built, but I will say that here in the environmentally enlightened 21st century, we are still doing development in a way that really contravenes the way the natural system is supposed to work. I'm not expecting the city staff to have any comment on that, but it's something that has made me watchful for impacts of development that we may consider to be in compliance with all applicable modern regulations, and yet still may contribute to some really adverse impacts downstream. But I know these property owners have been waiting a long time to get some assistance with this, so glad to see it's finally risen to the top of the list. I'll get off my soapbox and let other commissioners have any questions or comments if they would like. Okay. Hearing none, do we have a motion on this project at 2807, 2809 Ashland Street?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion from Ms. Tagliavera. Do we have a second?
Well,
Mark, I believe you were trying to second. It kind of
yeah,
got cut off.
there's Mark
Okay.
Senior second.
All right. So we have the motion to approve this project. Any discussion? Okay, well, let's take a vote on the
Aye.
motion to approve this project. We have an aye from Mr. Senior. Looks like the ayes are unanimous for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is 835 Brookside Drive. This is a severe erosion that's occurring on this property now. I just want to point out that it's just a little bit off the screen, but if this map were expanded, this would be 706 and 704 Holden Street, which we took back in October. And so if this project were approved, we would actually bundle the projects with 706 and 704 Holden. And the property owner for 706 Holden has been made aware. And what we'd like to do is, because these streets are so narrow, as a way to minimize the impacts to residents, we would like to essentially, while we're going out constructing both projects, kind of knock them out because they are within probably 200 yards of each other. So I just want to throw that out there. And I'll get to the erosion pictures. You can see that the erosion is about 7-8 feet from the back porch and 26 feet from the back of the base foundation. You can see how it is eroding and just the severity of the erosion that they are having. So now they have experienced some yard flooding, but they understand that this is for erosion only. That's their main concern right now. So I'd welcome any questions.
Looks like we got a quiet audience today. Any questions? If not, have a motion to approve or deny this project. Well, I'll break with my protocol and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve project at Brookside Drive?
Aye.
All right, looks like that was unanimous as well. Thank you, Chaz.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. So this would be just to go over the funding overview. This would total $640,000, leaving $385,000 for the next projects that we bring, which will be we're looking every quarter at this point. So we'll bring the rest of the projects for the fiscal year in a couple months.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda, I believe we have application for Raleigh Rainwater Rewards Project. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Evan. This
request control here. Charles. All right.
You should have it now, Justin.
Sorry, did I jump the gun on
You hear me all right, Evan?
I hear you now.
All right, sorry about that. Were you able to see my screen?
It was there for a bit. Let's see if we still got it.
All right, let's try again. How about now?
Yeah, we've got a quarterly report title screen. Yeah.
So, Happy New Year, everyone. Sorry for the slow takeoff there. I wanted to welcome the new members of the commission, but also kind of a brief introduction to those members to the Raleigh Rainwater Awards Program. It's formerly known as the Stormwater Quality Cost Share Program. It was approved by City Council back in 2009. And the main goal is to financially assist property owners in the city with the installation of stormwater BMPs and projects in areas and on properties where it's not required. So it's above and beyond stormwater requirements. And so the program supports projects where they're, like I said, above and beyond stormwater rules to the extent that funds are available. This program is funded at a rate of about $150,000 to $250,000 a year. So and we stretch that money across about 30 to 35 projects a year. So we do get a lot of traction with that funding. And the project proposed always has to be reasonable and practical per the policy. And so just quickly, based on the amount of reimbursement that an applicant requests, that will determine who will review the project application. Anything below $5,000 is reviewed by staff. Anything between $5,000 and $30,000 is reviewed by the commission, and anything beyond that is reviewed by City Council. So also part of that policy requires staff to report to this commission quarterly the number of projects approved and implemented each quarter and the amount of funds committed and expended under this policy. So how staff complete this quarterly is with a memo with a table which shows all approved projects highlighted against the background of every project approved over the last, I guess, going on 12 years now. So in short, since the October meeting, where there were 4 projects approved by the commission, we've had an additional 11 approved by staff for a total of 15 total. They were none approved or needed review or approved by City Council in the last quarter. For the 11 that were approved by staff, the total expended was $47,560. On the project completed side of things, and you'll notice these are highlighted in your table with the color green. These are projects that have been previously approved and have been completed and installed, or installed and completed, reimbursements been completed, and they've started their maintenance period. And we had 10 projects completed and start that maintenance period since our October meeting. So I just wanted to introduce you to the program and explain the background to that quarterly update. One other item, since I do have a few extra minutes here, I did want to touch on one project that has been approved since, or not been approved, that was approved back in 2017 by City Council, but has recently finally completed construction and reimbursement was completed just yesterday. It is a Parks and Rec project at Chavis Park. And the city is, Parks and Rec City of Raleigh, different departments are eligible for Raleigh Rainwater Awards, as they are a fee pair, stormwater fee pair. You'll see here during the redevelopment of the Chavis Park, or the improvements that they did, they have incorporated a 2,400 square foot Silva Cell. And the location of the future location that is right underneath this giant clay stockpile between the red dump truck and the pod box. It's like I said, 2,400 square feet. It treats about 19,000 square feet of roof runoff, and the total project cost was about $130,000. Reimbursement was right at $97,000, so 75% of the cost of the project. And so Silva Cell, just a quick introduction to what a Silva Cell is. Think of underground bioretention. You have these, they use this proprietary matrix that allows structural support for a parking lot, or in this case, it's a sidewalk with park area. And underneath the ground, you have media with freeboard on the top of that media, so space between the bottom of the top of the matrix to the top of the media. So the water would come into the system, it would infiltrate into the ground, it'd be taken up by the trees, and then any overflow would go through a perforated pipe, much like a bioretention through an underdrain. And here are just a quick plan drawing to show the footprint off the edge of the building, and showing how it's coming off the roof of the new building at Chavis Park. It has a flow splitter here for large rain events, so the system will not be overwhelmed. So the first flush will be directed to the system. And then this is a picture just showing you the size of the matrix. Think erector set pieces. That's what I would see as these were laying in the yard. These are put together, and I'll show you a photo of construction. Here's another schematic showing what this looked like. The area that this project was installed in is not being used for parking. It's like I said, it's a sidewalk. There's an adjacent playground and some open space. So quickly, just to show a couple photos, you start with about a 6 foot deep excavated hole with your inflow pipes coming into the system. You can see, I believe that's one, and there's definitely one there. You can see here, then they place the matrix, they build the matrix in through the entire excavated area. You can see your clean out ports there sticking up the white posts. Backfill it with media, which is almost exactly the same type media that you would see in a bioretention. And then I included this photo up here on the left. There's an inflow pipe there. You notice this top picture, top left, you can see the freeboard, much like you would see the freeboard in a bioretention to allow for ponding until the water can infiltrate through the profile. And this is what it looks like today, hidden in plain sight. There's 6 ginkgo trees planted along this system, all of them with root masses that go into this media. And I want to say that this is the only Silva Cell located in the city of Raleigh. If it's not, I can say it's the only voluntarily installed Silva Cell located in the city of Raleigh. And I'm just proud of this project. It was approved prior to me being in this role, so credit to my predecessors. But it's pretty remarkable to have a project part of this, not only historic park, but just beautiful renovation that they have done there, an addition that they have done there. If y'all have not been out there, it is worth visiting. Last thing I will say, the one missing part, which I think everyone would agree is missing here, is signage to show folks that it's there. I am working with our communication department, and they have linked us up, or Kristen has linked us up with Parks and Rec communication liaisons. And we are moving forward with designing a sign that is somewhat kid-friendly considering it's adjacent to a playground. So I just wanted to quickly run through that and see if there were any questions about this big project that was completed in the last quarter.
Thank you, Justin. And roughly when was that project approved? A few years back, I guess, for an infrastructure project of that size.
Yes, sir. October 3rd, 2017, it was approved by City Council.
Thanks. It's exciting to see, and have to make a point of going out to check it out.
Great. I will move on to the one application that I have for review by the commission. It's a somewhat small project. It's really one application split into two projects. They've split their drainage up into a rain garden and small cistern project. If they were to come to the program with just either one individually, it probably would have been caught by the staff level review. With them coming with both projects at the same time, it does exceed the $5,000 request threshold that requires the commission review. So we can go ahead and move into the details. It's located in Pigeon House Branch downtown. And so it's eligible for up to 90% reimbursement. And as you can see here, it's a pretty small rain garden and cistern. It's even small by the standards of what we typically would see even for a staff level review for a rain garden. You can see some of the footprints here, and you also can see how they broken up the drainage area. The homeowner has hired a designer to help design this plan. You have pretty much the back portion of the roof going through two downspouts being captured, taken to a rain garden in the bottom corner of the property. Then you have the front and side part of the roof going to a cistern, which will be located underneath a porch with lattice as cover. And you'll see with the costs of the rain garden, it's comparative to the low cost is comparative to the small size of the project. Pretty typical of what we see currently for your smaller rain gardens. And then you also see estimated costs for the cistern. Once again, pretty low cost project overall. And when you look at the two project totals together, you'll have the total property application cost with 90% being laid out here and the 10% that the property owner would take on. Move it over to the water quality considerations here. As you will recall, the cap that was recommended by the commission 1 year ago next month is still in play. It does not touch this project. The main reason for this is not only because of the amount of square footage that is capturing, but you also, because it's a higher cost project, that maintenance period is extended over a 10-year period, thus reducing that metric down. So well below the cap, I guess, is the main takeaway there. And you will see how this project compares to other rain gardens here. And for new members on the commission, all of these projects, all of these rain gardens, and as you'll see these tables and how it was presented in the quarterly update, all of these are ranked or ordered by the cost per pound of nitrogen removed per year. It's what we call the cost metric internally. And so these are ranked or placed in order from most cost effective to least cost effective through the history of the program. You'll see similar comparison for cistern projects right in the middle of the pack. And then you also see this legal agreement will include 2 sections of maintenance, one for each project type. And for, once again, for new members on the commission, every approved project or every applicant where a project is approved would then enter in a legal agreement with the city. That legal agreement defines deliverables. It limits what the city will reimburse up to the pre-approved amount, and also defines a maintenance period and defines the deliverable that the applicant must deliver to achieve that reimbursement. So in this case, because it's over $5,000 in reimbursement, they would be required to maintain both projects for a 10-year term upon completion of the project. And there's your generally your cistern maintenance requirements. And one other comment I wanted to make that I failed to mention back on the pricing slide or the cost slide is that because this project is requesting more than $5,000 in reimbursement and is before you here today, it is required to, or they are required prior to reimbursement to get 3 estimates and go with the lowest estimate as being the basis for reimbursement. So they did obtain 3 cost estimates, and the numbers included in this slideshow are the lowest of those 3 estimates. And I will entertain any questions about this project, about the program at this time.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions or comments?
I just second Ann's questions regarding whether the program can cover the signage costs. And I also think that's a great idea.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said the sign cost? I'm sorry.
The signage for signage to let people know about the projects.
Thanks for asking that question, Katie. And it's something definitely that this commission has asked about in the past. A couple answers there. For your smaller projects such as this, where maybe you can see the project from the road and it's in somebody's maybe residential space, communications, I've worked with communications and we've developed some, they almost look like political signs, but even smaller, that they're able to plug into their yard to show that they're a rainwater rewards participant. So there is some smaller application signage that the city will provide to an applicant free of charge to put in their yard. For your bigger projects, similar to Raleigh Union Station or Chavis Park, we work with other city departments or that property owner to meet branding guidelines and support the cost of installing signage there as well. If a project is thinking about signage at the beginning of an application and they include that in their cost, that is eligible for reimbursement. So that's probably the answer for the question that I was trying to answer. But we do have templates that we will provide to applicants, signage for your small projects, and then we work internally with City Department of Communications for city projects. And one more plug, as you'll notice if you visit Raleigh Union Station, within the last year, we were able to install a sign there showing, talking about the green roof, and it matches the same steel motif, I guess, of that facility. So if you get a chance and you're at Raleigh Union Station, please go up to the observation deck and check out that sign. A lot of credit to Kristen Freeman and Communication for that effort.
Mr. Chair, this is Wayne. If I could just pass along another comments in the chat that I think is relevant and helpful. Amy Billings, who's a project manager in Stormwater, who previously was in the roadway design and construction group, mentioned that there are Silva cells in Hillsborough Street as part of a previously installed roadway design upgrade there. So that's probably why Justin wasn't aware of that when it was another division, but I think that's worth noting as well. And there are discussion of Silva cells being proposed as part of the new Civic Tower that we're working on as a city right now. It's early in the design process.
That's great, Wayne. Thank you, Amy. There's always risk in saying the only one or the first one. I rolled the dice. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks. I think thinking about the educational signage, certainly for the large projects where we're expecting the public will be passing by, glad to see those things going in. For small projects like this on an individual residence, it would be nice to see, at least during the construction phase or something, a little sign that says, ask me about my rainwater or something like that. Since I think, a large part of this program is to get sort of seed the idea of going above and beyond for stormwater management on individual properties. Certainly if contractors are putting a sign out by the road to advertise themselves, it'd be nice to see something added on there about come talk to us about stormwater or something like that.
Great idea, Evan. With the contractors, we do maintain a list of folks that have completed projects through the program in the past. And I say contractors who completed projects. It would be a good outreach effort to share some of these signs that we do have with them to maybe put in front of our projects. That would be beneficial. So thanks for that recommendation.
And Mr. Chair, in the chat, Jennifer Wagner, who is the owner's representative on this Rainwater Rewards project, is here and is available if there are any questions.
Thanks. Do any other commissioners have questions on this project? Okay. Would anyone like to offer a motion on the project?
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Markwood.
I'll second. Mark Senior.
Okay, I'll give Ann the credit. I saw her hand go up first with the second, and so we have the motion to approve this project. Any discussion? I'll just mention I appreciate that the projects have been bundled together, and though that creates an additional approval hurdle, it's nice to see someone willing to go through that and not fly below the radar, that kind of thing. So we get a chance to be fully transparent about the cumulative spending of public funds here. So, all right. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Mark votes aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay. Mark, I take it you were voting in favor?
Yes, I said
Okay.
4.
Thank you. All right. Looks like that is another unanimous vote. Thank you. Right. Next up on the agenda, we have an item regarding the city's adoption of a nutrient management strategy for the Neuse.
Hello, this is Ben Brown again. Going to go through some of the Neuse model ordinance needed changes. Let me try to share my screen, make sure it's the correct one. Can everyone see my screen?
coming up. Still loading. I see it.
All right. So essentially, to give you a little bit of history on this, as a part of some state legislature changes, like 5-6 years ago, the state goes through and updates all their statutes on a 10-year time frame. So essentially, this is the result of them updating the nutrient sensitive waters statutes and changing the NUS model ordinance that was associated with it. The NUS nutrient sensitive waters is what the water quality portion of our stormwater ordinance is based on locally, and these first went into effect in the late 90s, early 2000s, and the last time there was a model ordinance was in 1999. So it's definitely something that was in need of updating. As I said, it is based on a general statute for the nutrient strategy stormwater rule, and it requires the city to update portions of our stormwater development ordinance. It also requires the city to update some of its reporting to the state, but I'm not really going to get into that with my presentation today, as that's more of an administrative task that we'll just have to do some different form filling out and that sort of thing. So kind of working on the timeline, how it's gone in the past year is, well, that's March 2021, the North Carolina Environmental Management Commission, or EMC, they approved the NCDEQ's draft model ordinance. And as part of that, it gave local governments that were in the NUS a time frame to make any needed changes to their ordinance. So the time frame was 6 months past that March meeting in September of 2021. The city had to present an implementation plan to NCDEQ showing if there were any needed changes to our ordinance and how we change it, and also how we handle some of the other measures as far as like the reporting and things like that. We actually got comments back from the state in November of this past year, and were able to make some clarifications back to them this past December. And at that time, we had asked them about presenting the ordinance changes to the Stormwater Commission, and they thought that would be an excellent idea to kind of get a head start. As in March 2022, NCDEQ will be presenting our plan, the City of Raleigh's plan, to the EMC for their official approval, which will put us on the official clock to have our ordinance changed by September of 2022. I feel like I said way too many dates in the past 2 minutes, so I apologize if there was anything else that you guys missed. But basically, the take-home message of this slide is that we need to get our ordinance updated by September of 2022. And so that's my main key from this slide. So
Ben,
yep.
So the September 2022 is when the city has to have the ordinance adopted, or have the ordinance adopted and in effect?
Great clarification. Yes, it needs to be adopted and effective in September of 2022. So that's why the city staff was looking to kind of get a head start on that by coming to you before we actually had our plan presented to the EMC. So,
and in terms of ordinance adoption timelines, is that particularly aggressive or typical for other ordinance changes at the city level?
I'd say it's aggressive, and I'm confident we can hit it, but it is going to be not as much lead time as say we had with like the floodplain ordinance text change or anything like that.
Thank you.
No problem. So first, kind of kick off, we'll talk about the regulations in our stormwater ordinance that are not affected. So there is no change to our rate of runoff control, which is the 2 and 10-year storm to pre-development conditions for most of our sites. The regulation for increased runoff control upstream of structural flooding cases, that will not be changing. The detention during construction for larger construction sites, that will not be changing. The majority of our stormwater SCM maintenance won't be changing. There's a few clarifications and wording changes that are going with this, but nothing that's going to change the intent or the way we implement. And also, smaller sites will still have that maximum impervious area, but we did have to go with a term change, going kind of away from impervious area to what's called built upon area limits, and I'll get into that in a second. So here are the changes. So we added definitions specific for Chapter 9.2, which is something we hadn't really done in the UDO prior, but talking just with our city attorneys and just with our staff, is to have a specific set of definitions that would apply to 9.2 was going to be helpful to kind of separate those out. So like we won't have general definitions that are used across like the entire 12 chapters of the city's UDO. As I mentioned, to create that built upon area term for impervious and partially impervious surface, and this kind of comes from the fact that the city's use of impervious area that is in our MPDS permit is more stringent than the state's definition right now. So this was to make the model ordinance consistent with current city standards. And DEQ staff has looked at this and they're in agreement with this built upon area term. There was an added exemption for single family lots that were greater than 1 acre with less than 5% built upon area. That was something we didn't currently have, but that was something that is in the state ordinance and the model ordinance that we needed to change. And also we added the exemption for agriculture to comply with state statutes. That's something that's been in the state statute, but we didn't necessarily call out the agriculture exemption in our ordinance, and so we went ahead and put that in there. And there are the biggest changes are coming to our nutrient treatment requirements for our development sites with the addition of new impervious, and I'll get into that with the next slide.
Can you just give an example of partially impervious surface?
So like pervious pavement and decks and things like that. So we actually considered compacted gravel impervious that you're parking on, basically, which the state doesn't necessarily consider that impervious. And also decks, we consider 50% impervious, and any pervious pavement as well, or pervious pavers could get some sort of partial impervious credit too as well.
Thanks.
No problem. So a real quick recap, and feel free to stop me and ask just some questions because it gets a little bit technical on this slide. The current standards for nutrient for nutrient reductions in our development regulations is that the nitrogen loading rate leaving a site must be at 3.6 pounds per acre per year, and that's the Neutral basin-wide limit for nitrogen. So it kind of matches that. Currently, commercial sites, they must reduce their on-site nitrogen loading rate to 10 pounds per acre per year before they can use any kind of off-site nutrient buy down, which is buying kind of nitrogen credits from a mitigation bank or something like that. Essentially, for lack of a better term, buying part of your compliance. So what we see from most of our commercial developments is they'll use a device to get their nitrogen loading down to 10 pounds per acre per year, and then they'll buy down to 3.6. And close to that as well is the residential sites. They must reduce their nitrogen down to 6 pounds per acre per year before they can use any sort of off-site nutrient buy down. So the same way with the commercials, we'll see SCMs on larger residential sites that'll get their nitrogen loading rate to 6 pounds per acre per year, and then they'll buy their way down to kind of that 3.6. So this is kind of where the crux of the big change is coming with the model ordinance. So proposed standards for nutrient reduction going forward is you still got the same target, which is at 3.6 pounds per acre per year. Like I said, that's for the entire Neuse Basin, not just Raleigh or just commercial or residential. It's for the whole Neuse Basin. But all sites with more than 24% built upon area must utilize a primary stormwater control measure, or an SCM, before using off-site nutrient buy down to meet target loading rates. So that's essentially saying, like, instead of having that number that you're getting to, that once a site has greater than 24% built upon area, which is for a commercial site, we'll see anywhere from 60 to 70% built upon area. So that's going to take care of most of our commercial sites. The state considers that high density, and then you must use treatment with a primary stormwater control measure. And then once you do that treatment, you can buy down after that. And conversely, all sites with less than 24% built upon area, it's considered low density, and they may utilize an off-site nutrient buy down to meet that target loading rate. Now, no matter what you're getting to in this percentage, you're still having to calculate your individual loading rate for your site, and then you're using that for your calculation numbers. Now, the state is kind of introducing this primary and secondary stormwater control measure, and what that kind of breaks down as, primary SCMs kind of treat a greater amount of nutrients than secondary ones. They're your larger devices. They're usually bigger in size. You're allowed to use multiple secondary SCMs, can be used to count as one primary as SCM under certain conditions. Secondary as SCMs can be used with primaries as sort of pre-treatment to treat water before it gets into the primary. And also the secondary SCMs can be used of treatment riparian buffers to kind of slow down or spread out the stormwater. And kind of the examples of what these devices are, and this is straight out the state's design manual, is your primary as SCMs are bioretentions, infiltrations, permeable pavement, wet ponds, stormwater wetlands, sand filter, or rainwater harvesting. Now, the secondary ones would be a green roof, utilizing disconnected and impervious surface, which is basically like taking water that's coming from a roof, like say like a gutter, and kind of spraying that out over some sort of impervious area instead of straight piping that to like the street or something like that. A level spreader with a filter strip kind of combination, which the level spreader is there to kind of spread out the water, and then you'd have a vegetated area downstream of the level spreader, kind of treat that. A swale or a grass swale that would just there for pollutant removal purposes, or like a dry pond, which is basically like those detention basins you've seen that'll catch stormwater and slow it down, and then after like 2 to 4 days, it's completely dry, but it's still vegetated inside. So,
Ben,
go ahead.
Yeah, can you go back to the first slide on the new
This one?
requirements? Yeah, the proposed standard. So tell me if I'm reading this right. Under current regulations, if you were on a commercial site, you just developed the commercial site with no stormwater control measures, but it happens to have less than 10 pounds per acre per year leaving the site, you can then just begin buying down. But
Correct.
under the new, even if what's leaving the site is below 10 pounds per acre, you still have to install some kind of primary stormwater control measure before you can begin buying down.
That's correct.
Okay, so you could have 8 pounds per acre per year leaving the site, but you still have to install primary stormwater control measure before you can buy the rest of your way down.
Correct. And I will say any commercial site in Raleigh is not getting to 10 pounds per acre without treatment. So for that kind of high use or high impervious or built upon area, they're always going to be over that 10 pounds per acre. So there's always going to be some sort of treatment.
So they're already having to install primary SCMs.
Well, they're having to
under
install some sort of SCM.
Okay.
So right now, we don't have the primary versus secondary distinction, which like the state, until they updated their statute, didn't have that either. You just got different treatment levels for the different devices. Like I'm going to skip ahead real quick here. Like the secondary SCMs have a pretty low, even now, they have a pretty low like reduction rate for pollutants, anywhere between 10 and 20%. Whereas the primary ones are up in like the 30 to 40% range. So they were mainly driving what SCM was going to be on your site, depending on what the amount of nitrogen that it was able to reduce to get to that 10 number. Whereas now they're saying if you're above that 24% number, you have to use a primary device.
Okay. But you could still install primary and have greater than 10 pounds per acre leaving the site, and you can start buying nutrient credits to achieve the rest.
Correct. But as I said in the fourth slide, we will still have our rate of runoff control and that sort of thing too. So that will kind of drive some of the design changes, but that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying you're anything against that, but that's kind of what. So this is by far the biggest change that's coming in with the model ordinance. So for city projects, they are handled a little bit differently now under the model ordinance. For linear public projects, they may now utilize offsite mitigation credits regardless of their nutrient loading rate. And these are projects like roadways and sidewalks and things like that. And non-linear public projects are subject to the proposed changes the same as the private project would be. So this method is similar to how the state was treating the NC Department of Transportation's linear projects, and it just kind of brings us more in line with them. I will say with the non-linear public projects, they're more like a traditional development plan site. They're a certain parcel of land, and they're developing it to a certain area, and they're treating that area. Whereas with the linear, the struggle has been with our public project partners is that for a sidewalk or a roadway, it's not really a site that they're developing. They're not able to put SCMs as easily as maybe a non-linear project would. So that was kind of the driving factor on that as well. So next steps for the commission level here, you may either vote to send this to city council to begin that orders change process, or you can ask for a little more info, and we can come back in February and kind of share some more items with you. Like I said, I would like to get this to council to stay on schedule by March. So that next meeting, I would ask that the commission make a decision on it, and then at that point we would present that request to city council, and then if approved, the ordinance change language taken to planning commission for approval, and then once the planning commission was done with it, they would send it on to city council with a request for public hearing for the ordinance change, and with that, the new changes becoming effective prior to September 2022. This is something that the state is mandating that we do by September of 2022. It's, I know one of Mark Sr.'s favorite term, the unfunded mandate, but but we are more than happy to answer any questions or anything like that about it, or get you some more information. I do want to thank Lauren Witherspoon, who did a lion's share of the paperwork side on this to kind of get the ordinance change ready to turn into the state, to kind of show how our ordinance would be changing. And so she helped out a ton on this. But other than that, if you guys have any more questions, or if you'd like to request any more information from us, we're happy to do it. Or if not, you could vote to approve, and I would still, staff would probably would still take it to city council in that March timeframe, even if you voted to approve it today. So.
Thanks, Ben. Pretty succinct presentation. There's a lot to unpack still, but in terms of the change to requiring primary stormwater control measures, and do you anticipate that that is going to result in reduction of actual nitrogen leaving sites, or effectively no change? Is this something that gives, does this give more options, or what's the net effect of that?
I think we'll be seeing overall more treatment and less offsite buy downs. Like, I do think we'll have more SCMs that will have to make sure maintenance is being done for. That's based on kind of what I've seen the past few years, as far as how people are getting to that buy down level and kind of buying down as quick as they can. So I do think there will be more treatment with this, especially if you've got projects that are not all the way up to 70% impervious, but are just doing 40 or 45%. They'll probably be doing more enhanced treatment than they're currently required to do.
And does that shift any resources that the city will have to apply in terms of compliance reviews?
I think
Structures to inspect versus more paperwork to inspect?
I think the review standpoint, we are set up pretty well as long as we can get staffed up for it. There may be some things that we need to look at from the inspection side, especially post-construction inspection for long-term maintenance, that me and Wayne and I have talked about, kind of how that group's going to look, because it's only a 2-person group right now, but we would probably need to expand that, even if this didn't kind of come to us. But it's just but with this, it's definitely reinforces that need for a few more resources in that SCM inspection group.
Other commissioners, don't let me nominate the questions here. What's the feeling of the commission members? Are we wanting more information? Content to let this move ahead, or?
I think just once we implement this, it'd be interesting, for Ben to report later as to whether or not that did trigger more on-site controls versus off-site buy down.
Yeah, agreed. I think the data would be interesting pre and, before this and after this. But I don't know that there's a lot that we can, it doesn't seem like there's a lot we can do with this right now, given that the process is coming from the state per se. So.
Well, let's see. According to our agenda, this was we can, as Ben just said, we can vote to endorse these changes, or we can ask for some additional information and take that action in February.
I move we support the recommended changes.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Jamond, I saw your hand up first. Was that a second or a comment?
That was a second.
Okay. So Jamond provided the second there. Thank you also, David. All right. So we have a motion to endorse these changes so that they can move ahead to City Council. Any comment? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Looks like that is unanimous. Thank you, Ben. And I would, I'll second that interest in seeing the data as the ordinance becomes reality.
Yeah, and that's no problem. And actually, as part of this as well, the state is going to their SNAP tool for all the communities that are in the nutrient system water area. So that data will be a lot easier to compile and a lot more electronic going forward too from this. So we should be able to get more inferences out of that data a lot easier than we can now.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Ms. Dutra with case studies of green stormwater infrastructure implementation.
Great, thank you, and thanks, Matt, for helping me advance these slides. Well, hi, I'm Heather Dutra. I'm a project manager in the water quality section, working closely with Joyce Gaffney and Amy Farinelli on water quality monitoring, volunteer programs, and water quality project development. And today, I'm very excited to update you on our most recent green stormwater infrastructure project implementation. All right, next, please. Since it is my first time presenting to SMAC, I did want to give a brief background on how we develop and implement our water quality projects. We manage assessments and studies. We identify and lead project design and construction, and that can include GSI projects, SCM retrofits, or stream restoration projects. We also pursue and administer grants, collaborate and build partnerships across our internal departments, as well as with outside organizations. And we provide outreach and education and value and lead community engagement. Next slide, please. So before I move on to our recently completed GSI projects, which is the bulk of this presentation, I did want to mention the Walnut Creek Watershed Learning Network. If you haven't heard of the WCWLN, it's a watershed education program and empowerment initiative coordinated by Partners for Environmental Justice, or PEJ, where over 6 weeks residents learn about local watershed issues. They gain skills to develop sustainable solutions to those issues, and they complete their own neighborhood project. And back in November, my colleague Amy and I gave a presentation on GSI that included many of these same projects to the participants of the WCWLN. And after the presentation, PEJ actually shared with us the participants' reflections on our presentation. And you know, we really appreciated hearing these candid reflections about GSI from community members. So throughout this presentation, I sprinkled in a few thoughts and comments from residents to share their perspectives with you as well. Next slide, please. So now onto the Raleigh Gsr Retrofits. I had the pleasure of working with a team from Hazen and Sawyer from conceptual design all the way through construction administration. Lanier Construction Company was our contractor, and Reed Huntley was our city inspector. And if Kevin Boyer is tuning in, I just wanted to give him a shout out for his invaluable contributions and support with this project and our other water quality initiatives prior to his retirement. So you'll be able to tell from the photos in this presentation that the final trees were just planted in December, so these projects are very recently completed. So they're just at the start of their growing season, let's say. Next slide, please. So 4 projects were actually bundled into this one Raleigh GSI Retrofits project, and we did that to make construction more cost-effective and efficient. So the 4 projects included the Glenwood Avenue bioretention, which is located at the intersection of Wake Drive, Glenwood Avenue, and St. Mary Street. The Glen Eden Pilot Park bioretention project, which is located in the back parking lot right off of Edencroft and Carlo Court, and Peterson Street linear bioretention and the Walnut Creek Wetland Park subsurface gravel wetlands. They are both located within Walnut Creek Wetland Park on opposite sides of Peterson Street. And all these locations are city owned and managed, and so they will be maintained by the city after the contractor's 1-year warranty period. So currently the projects are being maintained by the contractor through the end of the year. And we recognize that they're all great locations for education. So we are planning on installing permanent signage soon as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the Glenwood Avenue project since it's the first one up. We chose to construct the Glenwood Avenue bioretention for several reasons, including its visibility and the potential to treat stormwater runoff from St. Mary Street, Wake Drive, and a portion of Glenwood Avenue. And previously, this pocket park, it was underutilized. It was a significant portion was covered in just grass and then some overgrown boxwood bushes. And many of our stakeholders agreed that this park was overdue for a transformation to a more functional and engaging space. And we knew that we could achieve this through our bioretention project while also protecting and improving local water quality. So for this project and all of our projects, internal and external partners are critical to the success. Our Parks, Recreation, Cultural Resources staff advised us on the plant selection and also on plant maintenance and their part maintenance as well. Our transportation staff actually contributed funding for this project to install a new sidewalk that would connect existing sidewalk on St. Mary Street to the existing sidewalk on Glenwood Avenue, which will improve and enhance the safety and connectivity around our bioretention project. They also provided really valuable feedback on our design so that we were able to incorporate some different grading in order to allow for potential future enhancements of the existing bus stop and the sidewalk along Glenwood Avenue. And then, of course, we worked very closely with neighbors adjacent to the project, and discussions with neighbors influenced our final planting plan. And we were also able to resolve some drainage issues that they brought to our attention with this project as well. Next slide, please. So, so many projects have this awkward phase before they're completed, and I consider that the construction phase, where understandably it can be really upsetting and jarring to residents to see such a change in the landscape. And given the visibility of this site, I did receive a lot of questions during construction, which I just want to say I really appreciate that engagement during the process, because it's just an opportunity for us to, one, hear feedback about what citizens and residents believe are important and what they care about. And it also provides an opportunity for me to give a little outreach and education and share some information about the project. But since I know that not everyone reached out to me personally during the time that this was under construction, we are putting together a brief educational video to ensure that the greater community better understands this project and its benefits. And I like this photo because it shows some of the underground components of bioretention that many people can't see from the surface. This shows, you can see the cleanouts of the perforated underdrain pipes. You can see the gravel layer at the bottom that covers that pipe. They're starting to put down that choking layer, which instead of fabric, we're now using this combination of finer stone and sand to prevent the migration of the bioretention media from migrating into the gravel layer. So I also like this picture because it shows just the amount of volume that these projects can capture of stormwater runoff. For this particular project, with the underground storage and the temporary ponding on top of the surface, this project can hold more than 20,000 gallons of stormwater runoff. Next slide, please. So as is typical, our project was tested with a significant rainfall during and right after construction. This photo on the bottom was actually sent to me by a neighbor, which I appreciate because it saves me a trip out in the rain. but it also shows residents taking interest in GSI and learning how it works. And it's rewarding to see these projects functioning as intended. So this particular project was dry on the surface in less than 24 hours, but it clearly captures that dirtiest first inch of runoff. It slowed it down, it spread it out over the landscaped area, and it soaked it into the ground. And during this temporary storage of runoff, natural processes remove pollutants, and the groundwater supply is also recharged. And it's important for us to try to reduce the volume of stormwater runoff, as you're aware, because rushing water to our streams during storm events, contributes to erosion of stream banks and sediment, and it also reduces pollutants that are conveyed in that first flush of runoff. Next slide, please. So I added this slide a little late just because I didn't feel that the photos are really showing the potential of the planting plans for these projects. So obviously these projects were just completed in November, December, so they look a little bit dormant right now. But I just wanted to give you a feel for the plants that we included in this project. We actually included over 750 plants from a diverse palette of 13 different species. They weren't all native species, but they are all non-invasive species. We did plant 6 trees that are all native tree species. We have to select plants that will survive in somewhat of a harsh environment, which is sometimes wet, sometimes dry, the bioretention. We also wanted plants that provide visual interest and food and habitat for pollinator species. I won't go through all these plants, but if you do have questions, I can tell you what they are later. All right, next slide, please. So to recap, the Glenwood Avenue bioretention improves stream health, it increases plant diversity, it enhances safety and access at this site, and it also serves as an excellent demonstration project given its visibility and the community engagement that resulted from the many personal interactions that we had with residents, the presentations that we've given to groups like the WCWLN, and the upcoming video that will be produced and shared on social media. And it's important that we have these highly visible city-led GSI projects because we hope that it will motivate and inspire private developers and residents alike to incorporate more GSI into their landscapes as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are some differences between the Glen Eden Pilot Park bioretention and the Glenwood Avenue bioretention, though they function in the same way to intercept, slow down, spread out, and soak in the stormwater. This is a tiered bioretention, so that means it's kind of on a slope. So the first cell is a little higher than the second. This project was really designed with maintenance in mind. So I talked about how Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources staff really contributed to feedback during design. And this particular park has a less intensive maintenance schedule. So we wanted to make sure that the plants that we planted here could be mowed annually if needed. So we don't have a lot of woody shrubs. All of the plants that we selected are native herbaceous plants and deep-rooted grasses. And the majority of plants at this site are actually overseeded with much fewer plants installed in container form. So that's why you don't see a whole lot going on right now, in addition to the time of year. And then we also included a concrete forebay for this particular project to help with maintenance. The stormwater will enter the concrete forebay before the stormwater enters the bioretention area. And with this particular site, there's quite a bit of leaf litter and debris that we want to let settle out in that concrete forebay. And then it can easily be shoveled out and cleaned so that doesn't enter the bioretention cell. And long-term, that's going to help with maintenance. So I'm showing a couple of plants here, including spotted bee balm with the hummingbird, the ironweed with the butterfly, and hollow Joe Pye weed, which is another pollinator favorite. So it gives you a flavor of sort of that natural garden look that this project will have versus a more manicured look that perhaps the Glenwood Avenue project will have. All right, next slide, please. So the Peterson Street Linear Bioretention Project, it's purposefully understated in that we wanted to demonstrate that GSI can provide benefits even in a 4-foot wide grass median. We know that there are many opportunities for bioretention in road rights of ways, And with the proximity with a school, the Little Rock Trail Greenway, and the Walnut Creek Wetland Center on Peterson Street, this was an ideal location to demonstrate the adaptability of GSI. And this project does help water quality. It does capture stormwater runoff from Peterson Street through curb cuts, and it has a simple planting plan that includes Cheyenne Spirit Echinacea, Black-Eyed Susan, Fox Sedge, and Blue Arrows Rush. Next slide, please. So across Peterson Street from the linear bioretention and the Walnut Creek Wetland Center is our new subsurface gravel wetland. I think it already looks pretty good, but once the plants get established, I think it will be a really beautiful feature that we envision being used as an outdoor classroom for the park or the nearby school, a gathering place for neighbors, or a rest stop for users of the Greenway. And for this project, we actually received grant funding from NCDQ Division of Water Resources, which helped pay for the construction of the project. And we were able to contract with a local artist to design an educational display, which I'll talk about in a few more slides. Next slide, please. So the subsurface gravel wetland is a relatively new type of GSI. It's not the only one, but there are only a few of these innovative projects in the state and country. There's another one in Greensboro, actually. But much like a bioretention, stormwater runoff does enter this device. The water spreads out and is temporarily stored within the surface of the project area and in this underground storage gravel area. The water soaks into the underground layers, which in this case is gravel and a wetland soil layer, and then natural processes begin to remove pollutants. But unlike bioretention, this project has a clay liner which surrounds the gravel, the pipes, and the wetland soil so that it won't infiltrate into the ground, the underlying ground like bioretention. Instead, the water remains accessible to wetland plant roots between storm events. And given that this is an innovative project, we will be working with NC State to monitor the stormwater runoff that is entering and leaving the wetland to determine how much water quality benefit it is providing to Little Rock Creek and ultimately Walnut Creek. We had a surprise visit from Dr. Bill Hunt and his team of students during construction to check on the project's progress because his team will be helping us monitor this project. And we were very happy to share with him about the project from several of our team members, which include NC State alumni. Next slide, please. So thanks to leverage grant funds, we will get to work with Derek Beasley, an artist from Durham, North Carolina, who will install a creative educational display at the gravel wetland site at the end of 2022. We hope that this display will encourage residents to stop and learn about and enjoy the project area. And a fun fact about Derek is that he is a former Ellerby Creek Watershed Academy alumni, which is similar to the Walnut Creek Watershed Learning Network program, but for Durham's Ellerby Creek Watershed. So just want to shout out to Amy because she is leading this project and she was on the panel with some other stakeholders from Raleigh Arts and Parks. And I think that they chose a wonderful artist to lead this project. All right, so a quick look ahead to the spring. I think Graham Smith will recognize this photo once you get there. Can you advance, please? Thank you, Matt. Next one. All right, so this is this is not what the park looks like now. This is a little bit earlier, but this is Wooten Meadow Park. It's a 21-acre city park in Northwest Raleigh, and it will be having a grand opening this spring. This is a parks-led project, but we, Stormwater, contributed funding and worked closely with the parks team on the new features of the park, which includes a daylit stream and several wetlands. For those of you who aren't familiar with stream daylighting, in this case, we are taking previously piped stormwater that went from an adjacent neighborhood directly to Harrisonite Creek, and we are daylighting it. So we are taking it out of the pipe through a surface constructed stream channel, which will allow for more water quality treatment. It will allow for incorporating plants for wildlife, and it will be a lovely new park feature that residents can view and learn about. And we've already seen tadpoles and frogs and dragonflies and a turtle using the constructed wetlands and the stream channel. So we are very excited for what spring will bring. And there are many, many plants planted here. This park will also feature walking trails, educational signage, and access to Hairsnipe Creek. So being that this really is featuring GSI, the signage will talk about green stormwater infrastructure. And then I just wanted to let you know that we are continuing our efforts to create a citizen scientist visual monitoring program and GSI interactive online tour. So some of you may remember that when we had our interns present, our intern Peyton had begun working on this initiative last year, and now it is being fully developed by my colleague Joyce. And we are looking forward to learning how residents interact with the GSI projects, and we'll be gathering data and photos of the projects as they grow and change over time. So really excited about that coming soon. Next slide, please. So given the many benefits of GSI, we are looking forward to more city-led GSI projects being constructed soon. I hope this presentation has been effective in showing how GSI is great for water quality and the environment, and how it serves as a wonderful community amenity and engagement centerpiece. Thank you for your time and attention. I'd be happy to have a discussion or answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Heather. Some nice looking projects there. Recognize that last one as being in my neighborhood. It's been good to see that. Any other commissioners have questions, comments, feedback?
I just have a comment. It'll be nice to see its progression as time goes on, to really see how it changes. That'll be neat.
Yeah, I think that's the opportunity that we saw was that when the projects first go in the ground, especially residents, community members don't really know what to expect. And what goes in the ground, it may be completely different and hopefully much better, more lush and green and exciting 3 years down the road. So I think the citizen scientist monitoring program will not only allow residents to engage more with our projects and visit them and learn more about them, but tell us what they're seeing, tell them what they care about. I think it'll be a good community engagement thing. And also, yes, see how they develop and change over time. So thanks.
Heather, I just wanted to congratulate you on a fantastic presentation. What a way to start the new year 2022. I mean, I feel really good. I've seen 3 of the 4 sites. I have to go and see the 4th one. But outstanding work, and yeah, just kudos.
Thank you. It's a big effort.
A lot of great looking projects. I can't wait to get out and take a look at them.
And you know, we're always happy to get out on a nice spring day and to give you a tour. We'd be happy to do that. So you just let us know. No problem.
And someone who's worked with Heather and Kevin on Wooten Meadow Park, I just say thank you for making that park happen, because it was facing some funding struggles, and that stormwater really came through. And what that's really doing though, that entire park is built within the Hairsnipe Creek floodplain. And it really made that park come to fruition for a lot of people, and they'll be able to use it in the spring. So thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, any questions about Wood Meadow Park? Graham is your man. You can answer them probably better than me.
Right. Well, that is the last presentation on our agenda. Have any other business any commissioners need to share?
Mr. Chair, this is
Yeah.
Wayne. Heather made a comment, but if the commission would like, we would be glad to set up some type of a field tour in the spring when the weather gets a little nicer and some of these GSI projects, show their true potential. If the commission would have interest, we'd be glad to help organize that. And there may be some other types of projects we can include. Just let us know, and if there's interest, we could bring back some ideas or proposals of what that would look like.
I think that would be a great idea, especially considering that you know, the lack of in-person interaction that has been available to us over the past almost 2 years now. An opportunity for some more informal in-person outdoor interaction, I think would be very good for the commission. And yeah,
We'll bring some ideas. Thank you.
great. And I don't suppose we've had any other public comment or request to comment. Wayne?
I see no other questions or comments in the chat or via email.
Okay. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. And a second. Thank you, Jamond. All in favor of adjournment? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and see you again in February.